let's see how we can use the CG100 to solve equations. And let's start by solving linear simultaneous equations, such as this system of equations. In order to do that, we need to go to the equation menu, and this can be done either by scrolling down or by choosing alpha A. So we have various options to use. We can solve simultaneous equations and we can solve polynomial equations. Let's start with simultaneous equations. So we choose that by pressing EXE, and we need to answer how many unknowns we have. In this case we have only 2. You can solve up to 6. So we choose EXE and it gives us the setup for the 2 equations. All we need to do is to enter the coefficients. So 3 EXE, 2 and 7, 5 and -1, and finally 9. And by pressing this arrow we go to the result and it shows us the answers. Note that the number that you can see here is 1.888 is truncated, it is not rounded. And if you want to see its value, you can change the format and you can see that there is a 9 here. So you need to check this number for the proper rounding. And you can scroll down, you'll find that this number is 4/9, and with 4/9, if you press format, you will see it as a decimal. Now sometimes you end up with equations that have coefficients that are not exact numbers. In this case, you don't need to calculate the value of √2, for example, and enter it. Let's go back. In this case, we can simply enter √2 for the coefficient of x, and it calculates the value. 2 for the coefficient of y, and √7 for the constant, and √7 is obtained by this button. You enter √7 and it calculates the value. 5x is the same, we can move across, and -3 and 10, and again EXE, and you have the 2 values, your answers. You can do the same process for simultaneous equations in more than 2 unknowns. Now let's say we have a quadratic equation that we need to solve. Again, we have to be in the equation menu, but we choose polynomial. And we have to answer how many, what is the degree of the polynomial. In this case, since it's a quadratic, then the degree of the polynomial is 2. We can solve higher degrees. If we choose this, all we need to do is enter the coefficient of x squared, the coefficient of x, and the constant term in the format that when it is equal to 0. Look at the top here. It gives you the format in which the quadratic must be prepared before you can solve it. So in this case, 3, -19, and -14, and EXE, and you have your answers. 7 and -2/3. As easy as that. Now sometimes we have equations such as this one that have no algebraic means of solving. So we can do this by going to something called the SolveN option. First of all, let's check that there is a solver here, and I don't recommend using it for reasons that go beyond the objective of this video, but you have to give it a guess for it start the value of the solution, and it will find only one solution, and if the equation has more than one solution, it won't find them. So my advice is not to use it. In order to solve an equation such as this one, we go to the home screen and we go to the calculate application. We choose catalog and we go to function analysis, and there is something called SolveN. If you're going to use it often, then you can pin it, but then with SolveN you just type in the equation in the way it is written. So 3 to the power x, go down to the line, is equal to, and the equal is shift left bracket 5 minus x to the power 2, and you press exe. It tells you that there are more solutions that may exist, but you still press OK, and it gives you two solutions. To see them in a better way, scroll up and choose format exe, and it gives you the two values. So one answer is negative 2.2 and the other answer is 1.1. Let's say that you are only interested in answers between 1 and 2. What you can do in this case is, while setting up the equation, you enter it and you put a comma and you state the name of the variable, it's x, in this case we're not using any other letter, and you enter the range in which you want to find the answers. So let's say you want the answers between 1 and 2, so you enter commas between them and you press exe, and it tells you more solutions may exist, but then it gives you only the answer that is between 1 and 2. Sometimes this method fails to find the answers. That's why you need to use it very carefully. Let's consider this equation. Let's clear the screen first, and let's go to SolveN. We can now go to history and we find SolveN that's here, and you can pin it if you want. So it's pinned. Now from now on you can go to the catalog history and you'll find SolveN, so you don't have to go to function analysis anymore. You choose it, SolveN, and you enter the fractions. X squared minus 1 divided by 2x squared minus 1 equals another fraction, 5x squared minus 16, and the denominator is x squared minus 6. Okay, and it tells us that there are two solutions. Now, we don't know if there are any others, but in this case, because we have two denominators that can take the value of 0, that's where this method usually fails to find the solutions. To prove the point, what we can do is get rid of the fractions. Let's cross multiply. And of course, if we just cross multiply, we're just processing the same equation, so we should be getting the same answers. Remember, when we wrote the equation in the form of a fraction equals another fraction, we got two answers. Let's now cross multiply and try to solve the equation when it is cross multiplied in this form. Let's clear the screen. And again, from the catalog and the history, we will find SolveN, and let's enter x squared minus 1, close bracket, open another bracket, x squared minus 6 equals 2x squared minus 1 times 5x squared minus 16. And now we will see that we have 4 answers. 2 of them are the ones that were given before, but we have 2 more. So be very careful when using SolveN, especially if you have an equation that contains denominators that can take the value of 0.